On January 15, 1919, at approximately 12:30 p.m., a gigantic wave of molasses crashed through the North End neighborhood of Boston, killing 21 people and injuring 150 more. This was the Great Molasses Flood. But how does one flood with molasses? Well, it started with a shipment. On the night of January, the captain of the schooner Pioneer brought 2 million gallons of molasses from Cuba to Boston's commercial wharf. The molasses was then transferred to a large storage tank owned by the New England Molasses Company on Commercial Street. Now, this tank wasn't designed to hold large amounts of molasses for long periods of time. In fact, it was only meant as a temporary holding facility. But due to a labor strike, the molasses couldn't be unloaded, and so it sat in the tank for several days. On January, workers began to unload the molasses, but they did so without alerting the residents nearby. And because the tank wasn't full, they didn't think much of it when they heard a loud bang and felt the ground shake. However, they soon realized that the sound had come from the molasses tank. As they ran towards the noise, they saw that the tank had split open and a giant wave of molasses was crashing towards them. People ran for their lives as a thick, sticky wave of molasses surged through the streets of Boston. It was 25 feet high and moved at 35 miles per hour, which is faster than most cars can travel. Molasses crashed into buildings, overturned streetcars, and snapped telephone poles like twigs. People desperately ran for higher ground, but the molasses flowed into the subway tunnels, making it impossible to escape. Those who were caught in the flood drowned in the sticky mess. Sometime later, a fire broke out in one of the buildings that had been hit by the wave. With all of the molasses around, it spread quickly and intensely, making it even more difficult for the firefighters to reach the blaze. It took nearly 2 weeks for all of the molasses to be cleared from the streets of Boston. In the end, 21 people had died, 150 had been injured, and property damage had reached $8 million, or about $160 million today. After the flood, the New England Molasses Company tried to keep the details of the disaster under wraps. They paid off the families of the victims and put out advertisements warning people not to talk about the disaster. But the story got out, and people began to wonder what would happen if there was a molasses flood again. Well, in 1923, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts passed a law stating that large amounts of molasses could no longer be stored in the North End. And that's why today, if you visit Boston, you won't find any giant waves of molasses crashing through the streets. Thanks for watching.